This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts. Welcome to Body Count, a history podcast.
Hello and welcome to Body Count, the podcast where we believe history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, and a proud member of the Big Heads Podcast Network. We're here to show you don't hate history, you just hate the way it was taught to you. Only rule, only choose a topic, someone, or as is usually the case, a lot of someone died. We give you the series of events in a narrative fashion, and by the end, correlate said story with current events. I'm not PBS Ken Burns or Dan Carlin. If you want a Hoover-esque, just the facts, man, very serious history podcast, we're not going to be for you, i.e. there will be analysis, opinions, and this is not a lecture. My opinions are my own. Know that I hold all my co-hosts verbally hostage. Direct your hate at me where it belongs. Now, it's said tragedy plus time equals comedy. No, we giggle at some occasionally rough subject matter. We're not trying to actively offend anyone. You've been warned. I'm your host, Jessica Manor, and I'm joined today, as always, by my lovely co-hostess,
Bethany Skelton. Hello. Welcome. Oh my gosh, it feels still so weird doing Peter without Stephanie. I'm so sad to join us, but we miss her.
We miss her, and we're toothpick people now. So
yeah,
what
just
we are.
let me listen to my podcast.
Next time, just let me listen to the fucking podcast.
If you don't watch Rick and Morty, then I apologize. You do not know what we're talking about.
What we're talking about. Period.
You can watch it though. It's so good. It's so funny.
It's so great. And if you're a lover of philosophy, you'll enjoy it. Just ignore the largely rabid fan base.
Right.
And stay away from it on Twitter. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Now, as always, a lot to get to today. First, housekeeping. We are part of the Big Heads Podcast Network, which is a great collection of podcasts. We're super excited. Please go and check them out on social media. Everyone at Big Heads Media on Twitter and bigheadsmedia.com. If you love the show, please, and go give us those 5 stars on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Stitcher, you get the gist. I shouldn't have to tell you, you know how to listen to podcasts by this point. Now, say whatever you want. It's not to make us feel good. We aren't complaining, but it helps us out on the business end of things. And to that note, also our Patreon is back up and running. There, you can run over there, watch us actually record all of this historical ridiculousness. Watch us crawl through the annals of history, however you feel like saying it. We don't judge.
Say tomato, same difference.
We gape for history. We keep you updated via social media, so be sure to follow us there. We let you know where to follow us at the end of the show. Okay. I got through all the bullshit.
That was perfect. Loved it. We should probably actually go ahead and plug where to find the Patreon. It's www. whatever it is. We should probably figure that one out.
I love that you include the World Wide Web tag. Like everybody's not on. Like everybody missed the last 20 years or so.
I don't know.
Bodycount.com / it's patreon.com/bodycount. And you can watch us do this bullshit and see the once a week that Bethany puts on makeup and I no longer make the effort for you guys.
Now we see how you are. I don't put on a lot though. I just put a little accent on, but gotta spruce.
Yeah, that went out the window. I mean, God knows. Stop texting me, folks. Sorry. See, that's the kind of realness you get when you watch this on Patreon. We got to get into this because we are just fast-heartedly approaching. Can you guys tell we're so GD tired of talking about Russian history? I even put out a desperate call on Twitter being like, we lost our guest. Does anybody just feel like being a guest on this show in the next like hour? Because we've done this. We've talked about it by ourselves. We've been here. We've lived this life.
Right.
And we're so tired of talking about it. If there's not a third person in the room and we're like, yeah, so
Russia. Here we go again.
Russia. Cue ridiculously long sigh.
However, I am excited because this is the last one. So I'm excited to get the hell out of Russia. Okay, like get me out of here.
I feel excited, and the way one feels excited when they're about to go into twilight sleep before their colonoscopy. Like, no, I don't want a 6-inch hose shoved up my intestines, but I am ready to get it over with. So,
Yeah. I'm here. Let's do it.
A colonoscopy without the drugs. That's living our
Sweet.
worst life in Russia.
Oh God.
I'm just ready to talk about anything. I will talk about tornadoes. I will talk about, I don't know, massive pileups on, I don't know, pickup fucking roadway.
I'll do one and do a backwards body cam. I'll hit you with one.
I am so bad at Russian. I mean, just horrifically bad at Slavic languages. And I thought this is a great idea. It was on the Time Travel Talks Discord, and I laughed at, cannot think of the name of the freaking podcast right now. They did the Romanovs, the End series. Dear Historians? No, I think that's their Twitter handle.
It wasn't Outlandish.
Outlandish Historians. Yes, it is. I think it is. But they were like, yeah, because I was talking about, God, I'm so ready to get out of Russia. And they were like, yeah, this is why we started at the end. And I was like, yeah, but I sat down and I was like, it's a great idea to start at the beginning.
No,
Like,
again.
What was I thinking?
Honestly, though, Jessica, you had a good heart coming into it. I'm the one that ruined it, remember? I'm the one that dragged out your 2 to a 5-6. Okay? So blame me.
Yeah, blame Bethany. We would have been done with this shit ages ago.
I'll just consider it me being a blonde, a fake one, but I'll just say I'm a blonde. There. Problem solved.
I'm a rapidly graying brunette. Does that count for anything? No.
Yes.
It doesn't. Oh my God. Like, you can tell I don't want to do this. I'm so sorry, everybody. I really don't want to get into it. But you're right. We're almost done.
We got it.
Let's get through
Take a
this.
drink. Take a drink. A nice long swig of some Russian vodka. And let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get out of it.
For everybody watching, there are going to be a lot of breaks in this recording today because Mama's going to have to make a lot of drinks to have fun and smoke a lot of cigars to the lung cancer will come from today alone. Just trying to get through this. Just trying to be done.
Maybe you need to just bust out like a fur coat or something. Just extra, you know.
If I was at home, I would straight up have my fur coat on.
Just
I don't care how hot it was.
Get your robe and just imagine, fluff it up a bit or something.
Fluff it.
Do the fluff. Because we in Russia.
Do the fluff, one thing. I've got to read this one quick, more intro bullshit. Then we'll get to it. Once again, I know you guys are so tired of me saying it. We encourage everyone to stop, back up, if you have not heard the previous Russian series. And there are 2. but it's all part of an exploration of the early Romanovs and how we got there. So we've got a 5-part Time of Trouble series and a 5-part early Romanov series. And then Peter himself is going to end up being this entire 4 parts. But they all go together, even though there's time space between them. And I outline why all of this content is, relevant. And we correlate it to what's going on today in the very first episode of the Russian Time of Troubles. In fact, that's what the entire first episode of the Russian Time of Troubles is why we talk about it, or we talk about why it's so important to go back and to look at all of this history. Now, you can catch all of those, you can catch the early Romanovs, and then, we're finishing here. Now, this is our first really, really broad, we've had a total of 50-something episodes. We haven't had that many. So this is our first.
107. Get it right. I'm just teasing. To be exact, no, I'm teasing. It feels like 107.
It feels like 107. We've not done 107 episodes of the show, you guys. I would sound a lot less like happy fun times than I do right now. Again, this was our first really broad, sweeping series, and to kind of grasp the full importance of one episode, you've got to go back and you've got to catch all of the others. And if you're enjoying Peter the Great, you will enjoy the others as well. Yeah. I really promise. And also, there are a lot of questions of why we aren't covering these. We aren't giving you specific concrete body counts, which, as most of you know, is usually what we do when we approach an event. But it's going to be that same thing as kind of when we go into Edward or Genghis Khan. We simply cannot. There's impossible to do. There's no way. It's just so broad and sweeping, and so many people die as a result.
We could do an estimate. We could technically estimate, okay, well, there's an estimated, well, then we'll calculate. But that would take another 8 million episodes to figure out how many people actually died.
To figure out how many bodies were actually dropping.
1 billion.
For example, this episode, we've got the Great Northern War. Who knows?
Give or take a billion. There you go. Give or take a billion.
Yeah, give or take. Maybe. At least a million.
At least.
We've gone. Just Yvonne the Terrible, we crossed into millions territory. So who really knows?
Give or take a billion. So you could even go ahead or go a little below. So I think there you go. That's our body count.
It was the same thing with Genghis Khan. Hashtag no one knows. So we're speaking to it now. We kind of want to prep you guys. That's what we're going into. So it's a lot of history. Just know the entire time, as a result of each decision that these people make, hundreds of thousands will die. And this is also Russia. Like, that is the name of the game here. Just
kind of like Death Russia. Same thing.
Just like the Grim Reaper shitting on everything. That is Russia. If you drew a map, a cartoonish like map, it's a Prince Wilhelm, sort of helmet over Germany, and then the Grim Reaper with a scythe, which, hey, that draws back into Russia, literally shitting on the entire country.
Wow.
And that's it. Welcome to Russian History 1301. Congratulations. Going to 1302. All right, so everybody knows we have tried recording. We've tried recording several times. There is a massive Caprock fire in the good old Texas Panhandle / West Texas. I don't expect the rest of the world to understand what we mean by Caprock fire. No, it's a serious thing, and it will take out your internet.
Well, and Jessica, I know how desperate you are to get through this, but do not sacrifice your life of a fire for this. It's not worth it. I know.
The great thing about living in this infinitesimal town in the middle of nowhere is there is not just a tornado alarm. There is a grass fire alarm. Because we have them a lot, and a lot of things burn down as a result of them.
Yay.
Yay. That's why I don't know why the California is whining all the time. This is just how we live here as well, okay? Sorry. Just because Miley Cyrus's house doesn't catch on fire here, like, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck about West Texas. Just saying.
We really don't, though.
I'm just saying, they really don't. Ugh. God.
Anyway.
Like, you're not the only place with fires. Australia's on fire all the damn time. You don't hear them whining about it. Just go on. Nobody's going to sing Hands Across America for the rest of us, okay?
Preach, sister.
Fire Festivus for the rest of us. That's what we live. Welcome to Texas. We invite you all to come to Texas.
We expect you all to come to Texas.
Where we have fire alarms as well.
Yeah.
Like town-wide fire alarms. So don't cry to me. I live this shit. I'm sorry. I really was in a great mood. And I'm in a great mood again. And I'm going to be back in there. And I'm back on track. And I'm focused.
Back. And
back.
we're here.
So, we finished last time with Russia's victory over the Swedes and Europe's recognition of Russia as a real deal powerhouse. Finally.
Right. Finally.
So, Russia's like rocking it on the world stage. So, what is Peter doing now that he's home permanently once again? He's done with Moscow. I can tell you that. You know, he's not even worried about rebuilding it. He's like, that's your problem. Y'all soaked it in vodka for the last damn time.
Somebody take care of me.
Somebody take care of me. He's done. He's done with Moscow. And no wonder, like, see our earlier series to know why that's not the happiest place for Peter. Moscow, for him, no doubt, place to be avoided. He had seen and experienced horrible things there. His world was about St. Petersburg now, and small wonder, it's in the literal name.
Oh my God, I did not, okay, all right, there goes a light bulb in my head. I feel
Peter's
stupid.
Place.
Okay,
A town of Peters.
Why doesn't he call it Petersboro?
Well, that Eastern Orthodox thing runs swift. You got to name it after St. Peter or not at all. And they were like, oh, you think St. Peter's is something to brag about, Rome? I'm going to build a whole city, mofos.
Oh, gosh.
Remember, this is about a measuring contest, always with Europe.
Ways. We're in Russia.
Oh.
It's a measuring contest.
We're in Russia, but like just all of Europe this time. I wish that all these monarchs had just slapped their dicks out and we could have all been done with it. We could have all been done with it.
Wham, bam. Thank you, ma'am. One and done.
We could have figured it all out. We could have figured it all out. Now, St. Petersburg represents the Russia Peter has been trying to build since childhood. Now, I mean these islands that form the basis of where he's building his dream world, really, are boggy, windy shitholes in everyone else's mind. But to Peter, it's paradise. That is literally how he describes this place. Because he can see it in his mind's eye. He really can. And it's not just that they have the benefit of being a prime trading station to connect with Europe, which he loves, like a lot. It's about renewal. And because Peter is so into engineering, building, yada, yada, he naturally oversees much of the work himself, or as much as a czar is capable of actually overseeing.
Like really involved. He's like super involved. He's like, no. This is what I see. This is what I want.
Exactly.
These stars are like, make it beautiful or I'll kill you.
Exactly. He's out there on the front lines working every day. But he also has a country to govern, so whatever. But he's really into building the building of the Summer Palace, or what comes to be known as the Summer Palace. For Peter, this palace, its gardens, they're to be built in the style of all the European palaces he had ever visited, admired, fallen in love with. He was
Like
always happy in St. Petersburg.
Like a combo of it all, like kind of merged together.
Yeah, he's going to take a little bit from everything he loved. And again, like we said, he's always happy in St. Petersburg and dealing with St. Petersburg, which is saying something for a man notorious for flying into rages. Peter was very committed. This was always at the forefront of his mind. For example, no cart was permitted into the city unless it was carrying 3 large primetime building stones.
Like big stones or like
construction stones. No skippy stones. Construction stones, like the kind you would use to cobble a roadway, if you will.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was trying to. I got it. Yeah.
Quality stonage. Okay.
Right.
Not like he's not playing around.
You're like quality stonage. We all strive for quality stonage. Okay.
We all do. It's what we strive for. So the construction of St. Petersburg was this living monument in Peter's mind to essentially announcing, like, hey, we've arrived.
Hey,
welcome to Russia. So
here I am.
Hey guys. And it's going to be a force, and that idea of, hey, we've arrived, is going to be the force behind a lot of Peter's decision making as we kind of move forward at this point.
Like, what do you mean? Like, it fuels what he's going to do? Like, he doesn't think, he just acts, or he thinks before
he's on his way to dragging Russia, kicking and frickin' screaming out of the Middle Ages and into modern Europe. And he's not going to allow digression. So we are in it to win it. We are now a European power. God damn it if it kills
Here we
me.
go. Let's make it happen. Pink is the new color. Let's roll with it. Okay, all right. I just was curious.
A new thing. Exactly. Okay. That's where he's at. And we're gonna definitely get that vibe by the finish of our story today. So Peter could see in his mind's eye all these palaces, parks, shops, promenades. Peter intended St. Petersburg to eventually be the Venice of the North. He wasn't a man lacking in ambition. We know this.
Right.
But he wasn't necessarily always the best at long-term planning, if you will.
Okay. Well, I mean, he was always into those war games. So war games have kind of a short-term plan versus a long-term plan. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, he does have kind of a vision of like Gulf Shores in Alabama. Like the wharf and like golf carts and great food places. I just, the way you described it kind of reminded me
of the 1700s version of that, like the jewel of the North. He wants to build something. He's building Winterfell or whatever the hell he's doing, But modernizing Russia isn't just the snap of your fingers, Yul Brynner, 10 Commandments, so let it be written, so let it be done style,
Genie action.
It's going to be a task. We know this. We're familiar with Russia at this point.
No task is too big.
No task is too big, and we couldn't be less equipped for it. Let me tell you, that is the
army is too small. No army is too small. No task is too big in Russia.
Nope. Gonna get it done. Gonna get vodka drunk. Gonna get it done.
So let it be done.
Like women or people in the empire just now getting used to women being outside. more or less slapping down like this brand new Russian Venice, right? They're not ready for gondolas. They've just seen boobs of noble women. They don't know what the hell to do. Like, oh my God, you want us to do what, sir? Exactly. So everything within the confines of the kingdom must change. We're talking money, bureaucracy, laws. Like, there isn't some childlike scroll with master plan scrawled across it, if you will, which was most likely misspelt because Peter would have been doing it.
Right.
He's hashtag not that kind of genius, okay? Peter's gift isn't necessarily governance. And you'll find that most of his life up to this point, he hasn't been doing a lot of governing per se. He was on a decade-long, sort of ambassadorial trip to Europe.
Right.
Longest gap year ever. And then
he had the Swedes and the Ottomans, right? We've talked about them too.
Exactly. So it's followed up immediately with those two and big wars. So he's not even home for that. He throws Mishakov in charge, takes the fuck off, and is playing war.
Yeah.
So now he's like,
he's not been governing. He's been being king in fun parts of king. He's been like shimming around all over the countries.
Dashing across the wars and taking tours.
Let's be best friends. Let's be best friends. You didn't wear pink today on Wednesday, so you can't sit with us.
Exactly.
Just feel Peter just dominating everything. So,
I mean, he hasn't, and war's still very much on the doorstep, but they're more like skirmishes. So now Peter finds himself really having to settle down and staring down the barrel of all the domestic issues that he's put off for the first time since he was literally a boy king.
Heirs. How are you supposed to breathe with no air?
Well, he's got one. Remember, he had a child very young on Eudoxia before he sent her to that nunnery. So he's got one. That's not his domestic issue. He has no treasury, no anything that he's ever done anything for outside of I need to beat Sweden. I need to beat the Ottomans. Remember, when he raised taxes last time, it was helter-skelter to get as much money as possible. But he hasn't sat down and made a new tax policy for the land. He's never fucking been home to do it. And now he's wanting to build a new Europe on the Baltic. Oh, shit. Like, you got to do some tax reform. Well, how do I do that? That's where Peter finds himself, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It's like, hey, I'm 23, my parents kicked me out, and now I have to file taxes. And I've never done it.
Oh, shit, I'm off your insurance.
That's never happened to me. Because I've always actually done my own taxes and sufficient myself. But I know people that have been through that, and it's kind of a surreal awakening.
Yeah, or getting on your own insurance at the ripe old age of 26. Like, that's the way it goes. So, and Peter is getting up there age-wise, at least in 18th century terms at this point. He can't go gallivanting across the globe. Ha! There.
Fun.
He's no spring chicken in simple terms.
He's like 2/3 into his life now, right?
Precisely.
Like that. So he should have had like 12 babies with one at least living, or 2.
Yeah, and that's about right. We're gonna see, because we're gonna get to some shit. We're gonna see exactly what, and that's what we're gonna be looking at in this last episode. It's really the end of Peter's life. And it's going to be devoted to domestic issues because we've overlooked those so far. Well, because there weren't really any outside of going to war or taking a tour of the globe. And no king lives forever. That maybe like that 1,000-year-old vampire Elizabeth II, asked Charles.
Don't tell their secrets.
David Icke was right. She is a lizard. We're going to examine what made Peter's legacy, in fact, so enduring. And the things that he did were great, but those aren't the things that really cement, oh shit, Russia has arrived. It's going to be what he does, and he's going to surprise all of us.
Okay.
But I can't emphasize enough that this plan is very step-by-step, whack-a-mole style. As a problem arises, then I'll take care of it. You know, it rears its little mole head, I'm going to whack the mole.
Right, but there's no actual plan with whack-a-mole. Well, I guess there kind of is. With whack-a-mole, you see a mole, you whack it. But it's not actually planned out. It's just like random. So
Yeah,
I feel
exactly.
the plan, but I don't feel the
Peter's
plan.
Exactly.
That's not really a plan. In my opinion,
if anybody on Earth had done it and was less capable than Peter, it wouldn't have been. So we're going to get very, very lucky.
Okay. Of course, because it's Peter.
That's exactly it. So as things come up, they're dealt with, albeit, you know, swiftly and in characteristic Russian style, and that is metal AF. The first and most pressing need, money. It's always money when you're empire building, right?
It's so money. Always money.
Dollar bills, y'all. So money means tax reform, a more roundabout, comprehensive, top to bottom reform than Peter had put together when he was in a hurry to just like put his foot in Swedish ass and just kick ass, right? So now he's got
action. He was more about the hands-on action versus sitting down behind the scenes.
Raise as much money as quickly as possible, turn out warships, do the thing. Now he's got to have a long-term
It makes sense. It does, but he's so focused on one aspect of being the ruler or the czar or the king or whatever you want to freaking call it. He is putting aside the stuff that seems little or not as important.
I also say, though, in his defense, at this time, when Sweden decided to come for you, you better kick your ass into high gear. Okay? Nothing else matters as much as defending the homeland. In his defense.
And no, I get, but he did put it off way too long. He could have had something in place beforehand, or so that when it was happening.
Yes, he could have, but he was off in a gap year, you know.
The gap year. God damn it! Don't talk about gap years. Damn it.
Live and learn, and then get czars. You know, like that is kind of their thing.
Right.
So Peter throws everything that's there straight out the window. New tax policy altogether. And it really centers on Peter's poll tax.
That sounds like a great name of a place I would go to. I'm just teasing.
Or like a porn. Peter's poll tax. Like, of course, a guy named Peter is obsessed with a poll tax.
I'm not gonna.
All about taxing Poles. And no, Poland. This isn't about you. Which is also a Russian first, can I add? Like, maybe that was the reform platform, you know, like poll tax. Something not about Poland.
You've lost me. Poland, platform, and poll. You've lost me, Jess. You've literally lost me. I'm done. I'm just teasing. No.
Welcome to poll tax. Hashtag not about Poland. That should have been like his entire, like, it's written in the documents, hashtag not about Poland, just so we all know. Peter invented that as well. Please don't take me at my word, because I know there will be people out there. It's like, Peter the Great invented the hashtag. No, he didn't.
Did you body count? Sorry.
Right. Please don't cite that to us, please. So if you're like me, you're asking, what fresh hell is this? because it's Russia.
Yes.
But it's actually pretty clever, again, in the context of the early 1700s. A poll tax is going to end up being more like an actually fair flat tax, essentially. No one that it doesn't absolutely break your balls, this one-time flat poll tax, right? Or at least it's pretty kind for Russian taxes. Let me put it that way.
Like everybody pays the same amount no matter what? Or yes or no? Yes?
Yes, and it's a little bit, pretty much, it's like a flat tax that's not income-based, basically. So the poll tax was paid once a year by every male subject in the realm. Peasants had to pay the equivalent of $100 USD today, while urbanites, so people that lived in the cities, paid considerably more, with the equivalent of 200 USD today. But that's because once a year. Once a year.
Shit, I'd pay that. I pay $100 once a year.
Oh yeah, but $100 back then.
I know, can we put that into now?
Right? Can we make that the flat tax now?
Shit, the government
the flat tax now. I'd be more receptive to a flat tax if that was my flat tax. Just saying.
Thank you.
Peasants in some part of the country were now taxed for the very first time ever. For example, Siberia and the Volga, and a lot of them had fairly decent populations. Now this almost triples Russia's income. And Peter now has some walking around money to fund all
some jingle in his pocket. He's got some spending cash. Okay.
He's got some walking around. He's got a lot of reforms up his czar sleeve that he can now fund. It's like a goddamn magician. He's pulling them out one after the other. Peter saw exactly. Peter saw his being czar as a calling to some sacred duty, all that divine right of king shit. And he was Mother Russia's faithful servant, and he expected the same of his people from top to bottom, the poorest to the richest noble. I'm on the Russia train. You better be fucking on it. Okay. Peter was about everybody being on board, and he wanted to make sure everybody was on that nationalism kind of train with him, if you will. Peter was about, he just wanted to, he had this grandiose idea of Russia, that everything that was Russian culture could be put on the stage the same as, let's say, Swedish, Danish, English, French culture, like it was going to be a thing in Europe.
He wanted to make it a thing.
Exactly.
He was going to make it a thing, and everybody better
be a fucking thing, okay? And everybody better jump on the train. We're nationalists. We're going to love it. We're about Russia.
God.
We're going to throw Russia's
Fetch isn't a thing. Stop trying to make it a thing. It's not going to be a thing. It's not going to happen.
He makes Fetch a thing, okay? He makes Russia a thing.
Out
of sheer force of will.
Yeah.
And because he wanted to make sure the old state ran as smooth as silk, he creates the post of fiscal. Now, what do we think fiscal's job duties are? I'm going to cut you off before you even guess, because you don't have to guess. It was basically to wander around, sniff out corruption.
Oh, he's a snitch.
Secret police. Yes, exactly.
He was the snitch.
Russia creates a secret police.
What?
That's news. God,
there are people that go undercover and reveal secrets? What?
Oh, you mean there are Billy badasses wandering around Russia, spying on everybody?
What? That doesn't happen. Not anymore, right?
Echo of today. Just saying. You don't think this shit is relevant? They've been doing this a long time. Vladimir Putin just opened the playbook, flipped to S for secret police, and it was like, oh, Yes, I see now. Like, that's all he had to do. He's not doing anything revolutionary in Russia. This is old hat. He's just doing what Russia's always done. So if the fiscal happened to find like any dissenters within the kingdom, well, they were punished to the full extent of the law, as a deterrent for anybody else that thought about being a dick. No, some of it, yes, we're going to talk like corruption, as is the case today in Russia, big problem for Mother Russia. So
hasn't changed.
Yeah, hasn't changed. If you were talking in church, there was a fine. If you were found guilty of treason, your head was getting lopped off. Them's the rules. Like, they didn't, and Peter never deviated from this, not for anybody, as we're going to find out. So, like we said, corruption, big problem today, big problem then as well. Peter kind of lost his shit, declaring that if anyone stole so much as a rope, because he was only getting so much of the money due to corruption anyway, anybody steals so much as a rope, it would be used to hang him or her with. Like,
okay. I have to say, like, I mean, at first I was kind of confused when you were like, as much as a rope. I'm like, damn, what the I would say like a crumb, or a slice of an apple. But no, and then when he said that he would use it to hang them, okay, all right, I get your point. None, you don't need to explain further.
I mean, to be fair, he would have shoved that apple piece down your throat till you fucking choked to death on it too. Like, that's kind of his thing.
However, it doesn't have the same effect back then as a rope does. So now I get it. All right, I'm following his lead. Shocker.
You're following it. What a great thing to say, though. So much as steal a rope, I'll use it to fucking hang you with. Get it?
Yeah, that's creative.
Even though he's gathering these taxes and they're still higher, he's losing a lot to like people's pockets along the way. He's had enough of it, had enough of his enemies, had enough of nobles.
Right.
This is going to be even funnier. Shocker. And I don't ever think that it isn't hardcore parkour in Russia. Like, it is. But Peter made errors in judgment as well when it came to government. He made plenty. We're not saying this is some god king who never did any wrong. That's not how you get the great. You just keep chugging. And that is kind of what Peter did. For example, the biggest embezzler from royal funds was his best friend, Prince Menshikov, whose income matched that of the state itself. So whatever Russia made, Menshikov's making.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, but Menshikov also talked down from going through with the fun times hanging part, surprise, surprise, since he's the biggest embezzler, warning that if you get that real, you're not going to have any subjects left. So, yes, Peter made mistakes, but, and even though Menshikov was the worst of them, that is still good advice. And it kind of tempers Peter from here on out. Like, I can't go bullshit Ivan crazy, or I'm not going to have any subjects left to rule.
Right.
Exactly.
You can only clean house so much before you're left with nothing. So.
Precisely. And even though the time of troubles at this point is a long time ago, bear in mind, Russia still hasn't forgotten. It was quite the fucking lesson. It's like I always say, guys wearing like brooms and dog heads tends to make a statement.
It's burned into my brain, and I wasn't even there. I wasn't even a thought. My great grandparents weren't even a thought, and it's engraved in my memory. So yeah, Put
your dog heads on, go kill some women and children by roping them together and throwing them in the River Neva,
Oh, and you can rape them or you murder them. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Man.
You know who remembers that? Fucking Russia, okay? Like, they haven't forgotten. So
And now
that's
me.
the show.
Yeah, I remember.
I will
I
never
do.
forget. Hashtag never forget.
Forget. I really won't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's so terrible. I won't either. Oh, but this
Sorry.
shows us, Peter's not infallible. He's not. He's listening to a guy that steals from him, but at the same time, he's taking good advice from the guy that stole from him. He's not perfect by any means of the imagination. He's still very much a Romanov. Like, no doubt about it. 110%. But at least he's trying to actively reform Russia. And despite occasional glaring failures of judgment, like, to the point his reforms did move Russia in the theoretical right direction, which is leaps and bounds ahead of the past of Russia.
Honestly, I feel like every 300 years, give or take, we're heading towards the theoretical right direction. I might not be on the number right, but I feel like
we have not eaten anybody. We have not cut any genitals off. We have not burned down any towns. We're going in the right direction as far as I'm concerned in Russian history.
Yeah, I agree.
Been a while since we saw a good old genital mouth shoving. I'm just saying. Like
our children eating chopped body parts. I'm super happy right now. I'm actually proud of Russia right now.
The Cossacks are in the army, not eating children. We're doing pretty good. Cossacks. Yeah. I am not implying that anybody in the Ukraine eats children.
Right.
Some of you did it in the 1400s. Just saying.
You were born or thought of, and your parents and your grandparents and so on and so on. So it's nothing against you, just your history.
Nothing against you. You're a lovely people. I'm just saying that's kicking around in your history. We all got bad shit, as we're learning actively on the news today.
All we have to say, Jess, is that we're Americans. There we go.
That said, we brought you the atomic bomb brought to you by our bullshit. We got bullshit. You know
we
what?
do. Your history is just longer than ours. We can't help that.
Well, we've done just as much damage in 200 plus years, so congratulations to us.
Yay.
The more you know. God, I love history. I love it so much. So, tax reform are the least of Peter's reforms. And I'm going to kind of run through it here, and I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time. We're kind of bored with it already. I know I am. So statutes and charters for everything from the Academy of Sciences to the Admiralty spring up, legislating all sorts of also weird day-to-day shit. What boot polish to use, the width of cloth produced, profits of merchants, the proper way to build stoves and build farm tools, the correct form of welding, how to treat the sick, what sort of coffin to use, and like really bizarre stuff, like maybe how many times a week to heat the sauna. But if you think about it, Peter brought in foreign doctors and took copious notes when he was abroad, right? Regulating things like the treatment of the sick, weeded out old and dangerous practices, and modernized medicine. So even though it seems minute and stupid, there are some guys that think bloodletting is the only cure for everything when there are more modern cures for things in Europe. Now, Peter's brought this in, and if he doesn't make that law to say, hey, ass clowns, like, you can't treat wounds with human shit.
Makes it worse.
You'll get sepsis and die. Like, as silly as it sounds, remember dragging Russia kicking and screaming out of the Middle Ages. The width of cloth seems silly, but if all cloth is the same width, then merchants already know what they're working with to manufacture going into when they get there. Correct. So it seems insane, but there is a reason Peter's doing all this shit. Now, is it going to make sense to the man on the street? No, it seems like the Tsar's lost his fucking mind. But in Peter's head, he's seeing, this plus this equals this. Coffins to use. You know, it could be, I can't imagine that cemeteries were dug deep enough and put in correct places. At least if you're putting them in the correct coffin, it might keep some of that rotting flesh in there. You know, used to bodies were just burning out in the streets of Moscow. They were making popcorn strings out of people. Our coffin period is doing pretty good.
And they're like, why is everybody getting sick? I don't know. We're breathing in toxic dead people fumes.
You know,
I don't know.
Beyond me. I ate my lunch on top of a dead guy today. I don't know. I don't know what's troubling about that.
What's
I don't
the
get
special today?
I promise, Russia, we're not trying to paint you like dirt people, but
not
God
Russia
damn,
today. We're talking about Russia like
in 1700, you are in massive need of modernization. Just saying, and Peter's gonna bring it. So most of these decrees, I think you will find, strange as they may sound, actually brought some really positive change to Russia. Modernized it, if you will. Again, even if it seems cuckoo like fucking bananas nuts, it's not. So each new law was outlined very clearly. And it was not only the law outlined, but also coupled with the punishment that Peter thought fit the crime, kind of like we were talking about earlier. You know, like I said, you talk in church, you get a fine, you commit treason, rough fucking death. Peter, and remember, we aren't talking like democracy here, sort of treated his people like idiot children.
Right.
And that Peter, had to govern every aspect of their lives, big to small. And sure, he didn't ask how they felt about it, but really, he could have been.
He didn't care.
Yeah, it could have been and was much worse in other parts of the world at this time, if you remember. Right. Now, not if you were Peter's son and heir, Alexei, however.
Oh, man.
That same insane attention to detail and no bullshit attitude that Peter showed his people and his nobles, times that by like 20, and that was what Alexei had to endure as far as micromanaging. Now, no one listened to all of this, and expects Peter to be father of the year. Nobody listened to all these things about Peter, and it's like, I bet he's a great fucking father. No one thinks that.
None of the czars or anybody is expected to be a great father. They got people for that. And
at the end of the day, the thing that comes before being a father is being a czar. You are father to Mother Russia.
Country before family. It really
is when you're an absolute monarch, that's the way it is. So nobody expects like fun-loving daddy times. But Peter was extra rough on Alexei. Now, I'm not sure if this was a reaction to like pushing everything left over from his first wife, Eudoxia, completely out, or what. I don't know. Because here's the thing. It almost seems like in later life, he's always looking for a reason to be rid of Alexei, to my mind.
Peter?
Starting with his need to control every aspect of the Tsarevich's life,
Well, usually, what I mean is like usually when a parent is overbearing or overprotective or whatever over you want to use, it's because either A, they don't want them to grow up like them, B, they want them to be better, and their intentions, even though they're bad, they have good meaning, I guess. Or C, they just really didn't give a shit and they like to torture them. So
I think it's a little bit of all of the above with Peter.
I mean, because you kind of gave examples, literally, of if you think about Peter's, life and rule and everything that's leading up to this. He literally dabbles kind of in a little bit of all three scenarios when it comes to being a father and raising a son to be the next czar. Sorry, if
That's
people
why I
aren't
say
watching,
it's
I'm
a
doing
combination
major.
of all three of those things. Let's get into it. And like you said, there are controlling parents which don't do that. Like, your kid's gonna hate your guts until the day you die, no matter what they say to you. They're gonna hate you. And then there is Peter. He takes the cake on it. Like, down to the last detail of what this man and the heir apparent could do in a day. After Peter sent, Alexi's mother to a nunnery when he was 8, he let his sister Natalia raise him. And to his credit, Peter did at first really try to involve the boy and kind of take a hand. Peter always tried to involve Alexei in affairs of state, and he took him on campaign with him at an early age, like 12 or something, and Alexei showed a lot of promise as a young man.
Technically, he was an involved parent. I'm sorry, again, my modernization brain is kind of kicking in here, and I'm trying not to allow that to happen, but it just, like, it seems like Peter is trying to make an effort, unless I'm mistaken. It does feel like, hey, son, come
early on. Yeah.
But I mean,
it's hard to pinpoint what went wrong, really. And, and the boy showed himself to be very clever. He was great at things like math, a whiz at languages. Maybe it was that he wasn't necessarily along that same vein exactly like Peter. We just don't know.
Wasn't Peter really good at that stuff too? Peter was good at that kind of stuff.
As in engineering, building, but not like formal education.
Math, engineering, to me, tomato. But, I'm a dance major, so what do I know?
Yeah, and I mean, like, whiz at languages, but so was Peter also. So they did have a lot of things in common. I think maybe the boy was more scholarly and less hands-on in learning than necessarily Peter was as time went on.
Related to him and was like, hold on, you aren't smarter than me. I'll show you a thing. Well, I'm speculating.
Who knows? We're speculating and conjecturing at this point. The point is, the older that Alexei got, he seemed to kind of grow to be less and less like Peter, and Peter kind of started to bully Alexei pretty hardcore.
Do you think he was acting more like his mother? Because we haven't really discussed Alexei's mom, not a whole lot, because obviously we're in like part 4 of Peter. So
and that's because we don't know a hell of a whole lot, she's just a check mark as Alexei's mother, and then she's sent to a nunnery. That's kind of where, we know more about Yevdoxia from before she married Peter than any time after. So he would kind of push him over the least little thing, constantly berate him, and finally had to control every second of his life. We don't know the cause. Again, we can speculate. Until finally, Alexei resented the fuck out of Daddy Peter and even secretly began to wish him dead.
Well, I'm sorry. Been there, done that. I'm sorry. I will never be that parent. As a parent myself, who has been through the pushy, the over-controlling, the nitpicky, I'm going to oversee literally every step you take.
Don't be that kind of parent, because you're going to die alone, people.
Yes. And not just alone, but like resent and question, where did I go wrong? And you will literally...
I'm not going to say, let your kids run freaking wild. Don't do that either, because I will yell at them in a Walmart or a grocery store. But don't just constantly do that kind of stuff, because this is the kind of thing that happens. So, Tsarevich or no, wishing the Tsar dead is a crime punishable by death.
Even your own father. It's a big no-no.
Even your own father. Hashtag foreshadowing, because remember, you are the Tsar and Tsarevich first, father and son second. Now, Peter had many an enemy, especially in the nobility. Small wonder, he's a guy that's shaking things up. People don't like change, especially if they aren't directly benefiting from it. Heavy is the head, all that jazz. We know how it goes. But
Yes.
Peter's enemies really wanted to strike a blow.
Well, yeah.
And how better to do that than force Peter's hand against his own son and heir. And so
Yes.
Peter's enemies convinced Tsarevich Alexei to flee to Vienna. So essentially convincing the young man to kind of sign his own death warrant. Because, and I know you're looking at me like I don't get it. So think of it this way. A son that's old enough to have a crown in his own right, daddy doesn't have to rule. He's of an age of majority. Right?
How old is he?
So,
He's 12?
oh,
13?
no, he's much older than 12. He's a grown-ass man. He's had a child himself.
So he's like 15. Sorry. Sorry.
I mean, you know, like,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
of an age of majority, so we know he's over 16.
Which
right?
means
So,
Peter is kind of in a weird. Sorry, Peter's kind of in a weird situation where it's like he became czar at an early age because of the death, but because he's still alive, he has a son who is technically half his own life already, is already kind of picturing, hey, wait a minute, you should be dead already. It's literally like a rebellious teenager.
Peter, remember,
Holy
turned
crap.
out Alexei at a really early age on Eudoxia because he was worried about Sophia. So Peter became a father at like 16 something, which,
Not
and
thinking,
then there's a whole revolt and he takes over a country. Not thinking, oh shit, my son's going to be a grown-ass man within my lifetime. It's not really something we've had to worry about before
because
in
usually,
the Romanov line.
right, because usually by this time the lifetime has ended. Usually at this point, Peter should have
if
died.
it was an issue, say like with Yvonne or like, say, with Alexei, they killed their heir apparents as well.
Right.
You know, so it's a very Lannister-esque kind of thing to live in. And so now you've got the boy running away to Vienna, right? He's old enough to own to have the crown in his own right. Yeah, he's old enough to hold the throne or the crown.
Sorry.
So let's say he's old enough to wear the crown himself, pops over to Europe, and some European powers might kind of want a puppet king in the now growing threat that is Russia.
Right.
And so they send over an army under the control of the Tsarevich Alexei, and they might remove Peter, and then Alexei is beholden to whoever gave him the army to get shit done. So the second you step on that boat and go to Europe, you're a fucking threat. If you've got to think it through. I know a lot of people are going to be like, why is that a big deal? That is why it's a big deal.
No, I can see it's a big deal. The moment you put the plan into, you can talk, but the moment you put that action into plan, and once you get on the sea, yeah, I guess you could turn the ship around, I guess. But that's really freaking cowardice and pointless. So once you put the plan into action, it's done.
It's done.
Be prepared.
Exactly. You've essentially committed treason because at the end of the day, nobody knows what you've actually planned, what's coming, what the threats are. See, you can't compare it to a modern monarchy because if Charles decides to like mint his fucking Cornish biscuits, what does the Queen care? Like, you know, because there's not going to be that kind of fucking uprising. Because it's not a real monarchy.
Two biscuits. I don't give a shit. Whatever makes him happy. If it's
whatever
biscuits,
makes him happy. Let him raise his mongooses and snakes in Cornwall. Nobody gives a shit. This is different. This is a real deal monarchy. Let's say the boy goes to Vienna and Karl the 12th comes waltzing down and says, I'll give you an army and make you fucking czar. All I need you to do is kill your daddy. And you know what? The Russian people will follow you because you're the heir apparent and next in line to the throne. It'll be new king, different day, new king.
I mean, it makes sense. He's literally being offered. It's like, hey, would you slap your third cousin for $30 million? fuck, line all my third cousins
Well,
up.
slap the
I
fuck out of them.
will slap him backhand if you want me to for double or nothing. But I mean, I get it. He's being offered literally the ultimate prize, the
We
backing.
don't even know that he had been. But the second you get on that boat, there's a chance you might have been, and you can't come home.
Once your mind is made up, it's kind of hard to go back.
Well, exactly. And there's always the chance that he could have betrayed them, that he's a sleeper agent, or he's going to betray the current government. You can't. The second he made the plan, the boy was fucked. And
Well, I disagree.
Knew this.
Hold on, I disagree. He might have made the plan, but it's the second that he acted on the plan. That's where I think
he stepped on the boat. He was fucked.
Because you can talk and talk and talk and talk, and actually you can't really talk. Not back then, because you could technically no.
Dead man. If anybody found out about the plan.
Right, but Alexei, because he's the son, or whatever the next heir or the rightful heir, whatever names you want to give him, he was able to kind of have that conversation. And because he had the conversation immediately, because he's young, the thought went into his brain, and no longer did it matter that that's my dad. That's my dad, and he should have been dead, and it's my turn now. That's
bizarre, is what he's thinking, not that's my dad.
Well,
and we don't even know if this was Alexei's plan. He could have just been going to get the fuck away and just waited out till Peter dies, right? And
he's a typical teenager. I'll just wait till dad dies and then I'll take over the family business.
Teenage to early 20s, exactly. Like, he's not thinking, but he's not in a position where you can't not think. And Peter wouldn't have been that stupid at that age. Peter had already won his kingdom back at that age. And maybe that in and of itself maybe that's the disconnect between them in and of itself. Like, you dumb little twit. Like, this is fucking Russia. This is not a game. I don't know.
Because Peter wasn't technically, he was sheltered, but not really. He was still, he might have been under the radar at this time because of Sophia and everything, but he still already kind of I feel like he kind of already had it in his blood, like he just didn't know how to, like, why do I want to play war games? And why do I want to do it? And then once he realized his calling, it was just like, he kind of just, I honestly, I feel like Peter was just like, this is where I'm meant to be. And then now he's been focused on so much of that. And the fact that he has a kid, it's, well, not just a kid anymore, a grown threat. Now what is he going to do?
And he's got shit to do. And there ain't anybody or anything going to wrestle that crown off his head, period. And
I don't blame
kind of where we're at. And bear in mind,
nobody gonna take my crown.
Nobody gonna take your crown.
Nobody gonna take my crown.
What's more important, Peter's enemies knew all of this, and that is why they put this into motion. So, of course, Russian agents find poor Alexei almost instantly. God, again, Russia has such good secret agents, y'all. Like, even back then,
they're so undercover.
They're secret well, exactly. They're like, wait a minute, are you working for the Tsarevich, or are you working for Peter? I don't even know anymore. Like, it's just like, I don't know.
Whoever pays me more.
They're so secret. They have secrets from themselves.
Whoever pays me in cash more. That's who I.
I am liking my cash and rubles. That is all I'm saying. So they drag poor Alexei, kicking and screaming back to Russia to face Daddy's judgment. Now, Alexei is terrified, and for good reason. Upon landing, he's immediately intercepted by more agents of the government. Because it's a matter of state now. It's not a family matter. The second you stepped on the boat, it ain't a daddy-son matter. It's a matter of state. You have fucked up, son, like royally and completely. So It's not about the two of them. It's about a czar and a usurping czarvich. And your loyalty must always be with the czar.
Maybe I'm being like super defensive. He could have stepped on the boat, but unless the boat leaves the port or harbor, whatever the fuck they call it.
It's the idea and the fact that the boy allowed himself to be led astray by the enemies of the Tsar of
You're
Russia.
Right. You're right. I was trying to get it down. I was trying to be like, he hasn't done it yet.
Oh, Bethany. But if
know.
you're going to be a czar, there is no benefit of the doubt.
And you know what sucks? Is I feel like
sad.
Right. But what sucks is I feel like Peter kind of had a good like person always looking out for him. That's what I feel. Like maybe not always. He, of course he's gonna stumble. We're all human. Well, if you're a czar, you're not supposed to be. But regardless, I don't feel like Peter's son has anybody really kind of born him.
Peter's mother was a heavy influence in his life, but what was a woman in that time in Russia? They're not even allowed out of the damn house. Peter went out and he found the correct friends and he found the correct influences. So I will argue, because I'm a big personal responsibility person, like everything's 50% my fault if I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Alexei is in the wrong place, wrong time, and he did not cultivate the correct friends.
Do you think it has
befriended the enemies of his father, the Tsar of Russia?
Do you think it has anything to do with? And I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. Look at Peter's upbringing and his, what he was led to believe and then believed and had, and then look at his son, because I really don't know that whole much, but I feel like he should have been under Peter's wing this whole time. So I feel like there shouldn't even be a rivalry. If Peter learned anything, I feel like not only did he kind of fail in certain aspects of war and in this, but he failed as parent. Like, dude, you've got a perfect
opportunity. You're very much taking 21st century standards.
I'm sorry.
Laying them on top of 17th century standards. And then again, I have to emphasize understanding the idea of absolute monarchy and the fact that an absolute monarch, as in a monarch that doesn't have to listen to some kind of parliamentary body, they're secondary. The Tsar fucking says, then so it will be. Kind of like the King of France, They are anointed. Kingship comes in their mind by being anointed by God, God's own servant, to take care of the country, right?
I know you're going to hate mail on this. I apologize. I'm sorry.
No. But here's the bitch of it. If you're the Tsar of bitch, you're also God anointed to rule the country, right? Just like if you're the Dauphin of France, you are also God anointed to eventually rule this country by birth. Exactly.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I do sometimes.
If we do deep dives into other monarchies this time before, a little bit after, like if we get into France, you're going to find, oh shit, as soon as they hit that age of majority, I got two God-anointed rulers of a country, and it's not about father and son. In a way, that's why they keep them as separated as possible.
Interesting.
Because
I would think the exact opposite, because it's like, if you're going to be a great ruler and you want to continue with your ruling, then why not teach your up-and-coming heir the same thing? That's just me, and maybe that's
Some monarchs in history had enough sense to fucking realize that. Some monarchs in history had enough sense to realize that, and their heirs killed them for it. Or, because it happens a lot in history, like.
Every time I try to take a good spin, somebody dies.
But think about how much power we're gambling with here. You take a fart, and 1/6 of the world's population in Russia wants to fucking smell it. Okay? Like, that is power.
Use it, bucket, anything.
And
I'm sorry.
like, you can. So think about that much
True.
absolute power coursing through your veins. You feel God anointed.
That's like,
Suddenly, familial relationships mean less and less when you're looking at being a god king of an empire of 1/6 of the world.
of the world.
That's
Okay,
the
I get.
problem with absolute monarchy.
Okay. No, and that's maybe probably why. I mean, obviously, born in beginning of '88, very democracy, very like we should be all in this together mentality, And so to talk about history in this sense, it's almost like where I want to shake and scream at this person and be like, "You're fucking up! Don't you get it?" Like
Okay, so let's think of it this way. Tomorrow, you wake up in a parallel universe. You are the king of the United States of America.
Oh,
that means that you have $23 billion alone budgeted to the military defense of fucking the rest of the world up because you felt like it that day. So think about the power coursing through your veins. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it seems silly to you right now, but imagine if you're born to it. If you're born to believe that it's yours. Now
imagine, run away and fake my goddamn death. That's what I would do. I don't handle that kind of pressure.
Now imagine you have a son you hardly ever see that's only half your age that's born to believe the exact same fucking thing. You guys don't know each other that well. You're like, hey, yeah, I guess I fathered that. You know what I'm saying? And now, oh, fuck, I got that $23 billion fucking military budget I'm about to expend. Do you see, like, the idea of, oh.
God, I'm like stressing out. Like, I'm like,
yeah, but imagine if you were born to think you fucking deserved it. And that is what we're talking about. It's so beyond our comprehension. And it is so beyond the comprehension of anybody today. We can't even wrap it. It is beyond the comprehension of actual monarchs today to have this kind of existence.
It would be like you were born, and when you got to a certain age, you're like, oh, I'm destined to win the next 5 biggest lottery winnings. Like,
I can do whatever the fuck I feel like.
I wouldn't be me. I will be honest. Like, if I grew up knowing that, I wouldn't be who I am at all.
It didn't matter what you looked like, what you sounded like. All that mattered was you were the center of absolute power that kept nobility from tearing itself apart, and you control the population of a significant part of Earth.
I would throw up. I'll be like,
that's the thing. So far out of our imagining, we can't even put ourselves in that scenario. Exactly. So like I said, it's not about father and son. It's about Tsar and Tsarevich at this point.
It's about
power. So this is Russia's present and potential future here in Alexei. And these agents and trusted men of Peter's government, they torture Alexei. Like rough torture, Russian torture, not like pussy torture, okay? Like waterboarding, he would have loved that. It would have seemed like a vacation in the Poconos, okay? This is like
fingernails my one torture.
This is like the wheel, the rack, you know.
The Princess Bride. You've seen the Princess Bride. Put him in the stretcher.
Who fucking knows? Who really knows? And it's not well detailed for this reason, because it is a god-anointed Tsarevich of Russia. But under torture, and how reliable this is, you know, who knows, because it is under serious torture. Alexei named all to his his knowledge, the enemies of the Tsar that he knew of, or that had put this idea in his head, and renounced his right to inherit the throne. Again, all under torture. So, mission accomplished. And I don't know what kind of win that is, but I'm glad in a way Peter isn't breaking with tradition. You know, maybe it skips generations. Yvonne, Alexei the First, you know, now Peter, or maybe it wasn't Alexei, it was one of the ones in the middle. I can't even remember anymore. Just always killing the heir apparent and fucking up dynastic succession, you guys. Like, if you're a ruler of Russia,
chopping and going. Just
if you're a Romanov, that is rule number one. Kill your heir apparent, you know? And maybe we've gotten more advanced with how we do it. To be fair, Ivan just bludgeoned his son to death in a throne room. So, I mean, like, hey.
I mean, how Russian can you get?
He had a bigger swinging pair because he didn't care. You're going to say that, you're going to pay for it right here and now. Like, I mean, like, he will, and you're going to find, you know, Peter kind of dodges this one a little bit.
It's a little bit.
But just really quickly, like, male heir and a spare. Henry VIII kicks off an entire English Reformation over this exact shit. An heir followed immediately by a spare. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do, guys. If you get one boy, keep humping the same woman till you get a second one, and we'll call it good after that.
Just
jeez, an heir and a
why we have blacksmiths to keep them coming. Just keep them coming. Sorry, that was awful.
Henry VIII lopped off the heads of and remarried 6 women over trying to do this shit. Okay, at least he was playing the game, Peter. Fuck.
He was needing to win it, whether it mattered or not. People died or
number one of kingship, heir and a spare. Okay, like rule number one. As retarded as Charles of the House of Windsor is, even he managed to do it correctly. Just saying.
Oh gosh.
That motherfucker is fucking up the ecosystem of all of Cornwall and isn't smart enough to make a decent like biscuit. But he did grasp that one concept, unlike the rest of you fucks in Europe. Just saying. Just saying. All this could have been avoided. And if I'm saying Charles of the Saxe-Coburg Gotha is smarter than you, that is saying some shit.
With that.
I don't even know how he manages to walk forward and in a straight line. I'm pretty sure he's so inbred his knees bend backwards at this point. I don't know.
And see, that's when I know I'm smarter than Charles. I'm not that smart, but at least I know I'm smarter than him. My knees ain't going backwards, and I'm not inbred, so hey.
This piece of goddamn paper is smarter than Charles of the House of Windsor, okay? And his sons, I'm not saying skip, they're dumber because they came out of that nutsack. Just saying. Like, think about it. Food for thought, Britain. God, I shouldn't have said that. I really shouldn't have said that. I feel terrible that I went on a brief dynastic rant. It is what it is. Now, Alexei also added that he fled as he suspected his father was going to have him killed anyway. Do we know if that's true? Well, we don't know. That would be something that Peter's enemies would definitely say. The point is, we're never going to know. I mean, Alexei definitely irritated the F out of Peter, but I don't know. So they lock Alexei up in the Peter and Paul Fortress there in Old St. Petersburg on June 25th, 1718 in a court. And I bet this was just like a super fair hearing. I can hear the wheels of justice turning. Ruled that Alexei of the House of Romanov was guilty of treason. And
True.
we will all remember from a few minutes ago the punishment for treason. Now, what follows? Yeah, off with his head. Now, what follows? I can only imagine like somebody sat Peter down and was like, "Hey, Tsar, bruh, like we have to do something. We have to do something about Alexei. About that Alexei guy.
Listen, Linda. Okay, we gotta talk, bruh. We're talking about Alexei here. You know, Alexei. You know.
Yeah.
You really can't
about that guy. You can't drag a God-anointed prince of the blood in front of a mob of nobles, more or less peasants, guilty or not, bro. Like, we can't off the Tsarevich in front of peeps. That's like, it's fucking embarrassing, dude, right? Like it's saying, why would Russia follow you when your own son turned on you? So, he's been declared guilty, but we have to think about that.
Instead of killing him, you need to get him on your side.
Oh, no, it's too late for that.
Well, obviously.
You can't show weakness.
Right.
You're the czar.
No weakness.
You're a czar of a country that values strength more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Even
like,
to your
you
own.
Think Vladimir Putin's going to take his wife, his ex-wife, talking shit about him on the news?
That's probably
no. So
I'm just teasing.
I'm teasing. You're dead. You're dead. And it's the same thing. It is a country that values strength. And like it or not, you can't publicly execute the God-anointed Tsarevich of Russia and say to the people, my son doesn't want to follow me, but you guys still have to. You can't do it. So,
even though my own blood doesn't, it doesn't really ring a good.
We can kind of take a wild guess as to what's gonna happen here. So, just a day after the court's decision on the 26th, Alexei's found dead in his cell. The official cause, apoplectic fit, an oldie but a goodie in dynastic Russia. If we'll remember, that's what the real Dmitri I supposedly had when he slit his own throat, allegedly. So this is fun. Some echoes of Ivan the Terrible today, which we haven't had in quite some time. So it gets me a little bit more pumped.
He's kind of up a bit. He's like, hey, remember me? Forget about me.
Exactly. So no one knows the actual cause of death, and no one, quite frankly, ever will. What we do know is he was crazy tortured for a long time. I mean, injuries from that, how crazy they got, might have managed to do it, coupled with some nights in a freezing, dank-ass Russian prison cell. We don't know. But day after Alexei dies...
There's no historical scrolls on this part, y'all.
No. This is some of that secret police shit I was talking about.
Right.
Completely off book here. We don't even have shit to put out to redact. This is top secret. As in, nobody says a thing about it ever again. So, day after Alexei dies, Peter celebrates the 9th anniversary of the Battle of Poltava. So, he doesn't seem too torn up about it, not genuinely to me anyway, which I get. Again, when you're czar, every advisor is screaming at you, business as usual. Like,
true.
Oh my God, your son just committed treason. Business as usual, motherfucker. Throw the people a party so that they're distracted.
Look over here. Sliding
and
things.
I'll say it's probably not bad advice. Nicholas II, way later on down the line in the 1900s, ignored the advice of his advisors, and look what happened to him. Okay? Didn't happen to Peter, though.
Nope.
But if Peter was sad or not, and his writings do sort of suggest he was, although they tend to focus more on how he feels than the fact that his son just died, almost, as if being an absolute monarch might make you a huge fucking dick. We don't know.
Right.
One thing is clear going forward. His entire legacy And all that Peter had ever done was now in trouble. The heir apparent is fucking dead. And we got no heir and a spare. We got an heir. That was it. No.
We got trouble in River City. Sorry.
Exactly. River City.
No, you hated me during times of trouble for always doing that, but here it comes back around.
We're back around. We're right back in Avon-esque days. So if he died right then, everything that Peter had achieved goes straight down the shitter.
Yeah, it's done.
It's over. Finito. Finished. What are we going to do? So, guys, we're going to take a brief break because we have gone through a lot of trying to understand the nature of absolute monarchy, and this is going to be a long one again. We apologize. I could cut it off here, but I want to be done so bad it's
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm in it to win it.
We're done. We're done today, by God. If it takes 5.5 Dan Carlin hours to get the fuck through it, I don't care.
On our end, not your end, our end. Not your end, our end.
Not your end. You're going to have a great time.
Yes.
Our end is hell. We just want to leave Moscow so bad. No. I do this before we record. I just go, like, I have a little brief breakdown. I've got to get out of Russia. It is ruining my soul. It's making me a bigger alcoholic than I already was, and I don't need that. Now, we were just talking about everything's going to go down the shitter for Peter, and small wonder that Peter's thoughts go to this place. He wasn't exactly healthy. Like, not a well man at this point in his life. The doc gave Peter the old long face, let me put it that way, because according to the Tsar's doctor, which, what a reality show, Tsar Doctor.
What a job title to have.
What some shit to have to deal with, okay? So, according to his doctor, Peter suffered from chronic bronchitis, inflammation of the bowels, chronic kidney disease, kidney stones, swollen liver, and damaged nerves.
So basically, like swollen rectum. It sounds like a lot of
from the liver down. Hashtag not good. Okay.
Too much drugs and alcohol. That is a lesson learned as I drink my alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. You know, who knows? It's not 2020 at this time.
Right. Not even close.
This seems self-inflicted, minus maybe the nerves thing. You can't go back in time and erase the Streltsy gutting Peter's family and friends in front of him, but he seems to have at least skipped that early Romanov tendency to genetic disease.
Okay.
You know, Mom wasn't even a little bit related to Dad, so that's good. Good.
Peter really doesn't have any, I'm sorry, I mean, so literally, Peter didn't really have that much, you know, specialness that we talk about in the...
Yeah, not like the rest of those that came before him, if you will.
Think for himself, do for himself, but he could produce heirs that were also mentally sound.
That were also mentally stable. So he seems to have thrown off the chronic scurvy or whatever these land pirates like managed to inbreed into themselves. I don't know.
Sure.
But, like we said, the nerve problem and the trauma caused by what he witnessed. But Peter, a man after my own heart in this way, wasn't all about dieting or cutting down on that alcohol life.
No, sir. I love him already. I didn't know where you were going with it, but I was hoping. Cheers. We would have been in the same crew. We would have been the hype crew or the PTG crew. You, me, and Steph. Even though she's not here today, she would be in the crew. We'd be rolling.
Dudes, we would have rolled so deep with Peter. Okay, like he went to spas instead, though, and I don't know, like, took the salty saint water, mineral water, whatever nonsense passed for homeopathic BS back then, like the essential oils of the 1700s, I guess.
Bathe in the essential.
I don't know. He thought that would help.
Just make sure you don't mix them so they give you a rash.
What he really needed to do was quit fucking drinking so much and eating roast peacock all day and night. But, you know,
the drinking
like a big ass.
No. He just needs to cook the meat more, not the drinking. Don't cut back on the drinking. Just cook the meat a little more. That's where it went.
Less of it. Peter, look, I'm with you though in solidarity, bro. Like, Peter knew that this act of his life was fast drawing to a close. Oh shit, I lost an earbud. Knew like he didn't have enough time to continue to just screw around, right? If he wanted his legacy to last, you know, the tough get going kind of thing. And Peter is a lot of things, but no one ever called him a puss in his life. And not just because he was Tsar.
No, he left like a thing, like a era, a legacy. He I mean, that's, again, somebody that knows nothing about history, especially Russian history. When you said something, I was like, wait, Peter the Great, I know him. Well, not know him. I wasn't like BFFs.
I've heard the name. I've heard the name.
Now, he definitely left a lasting impression, even on those that are not historian intuitiveness.
Historically, like into shit. So
yeah.
Legacy time. So first things first. Time to end that Great Northern War. Now, remember from the last episode that parade-loving dick, Carl number 12? Yeah, he lost his land army, you know, but he still had that kick-ass navy. And while there had been no active invasions into Russia, Carl was still throwing a tit fit all these years later and just harrying the fuck out of the Russian coast. Really
hey, don't forget about me.
Exactly. He's been really playing hell in ports, disrupting trade, causing all kinds of problems. And, you know, like, unfortunately for Carl, Peter the First Alexeyevich of the House of Romanov, not in the mood to play anymore. Okay? Not in it. Not here to play.
He's got too much on his plate right now. He's like, look, I gotta only be like a badass, but now I gotta like persuade my son to not off me and then also off him before he offs me. So I ain't got time for this shit. You ain't got time.
Listen, bitch, if you're gonna come to Russia, you better come correct. Like, that is...
Be prepared.
But seriously, like, Scar is not ready for this shit. Okay, not even. It's as if Mufasa was like, "Excuse me, you know what? I'm just gonna kill you. I'm gonna come down there and I'm gonna wreck shit in the elephant graveyard. Watch me work." Like,
I don't care if the sun touches it. I will own you, bitch.
I'm gonna burn it to the ground. Exactly.
Like, I feel it. Like, I feel the heat. I was like, seriously, you know what I got going on? Like, come at me. Like, I feel Peter 100%. I probably would react the exact same.
Yeah, he's got no time for this shit. So Peter needs to shore up his kingdom, and war has long since ceased to be a game to Peter, right? It's real deal. And he's in it to win it this time. It's great because this shit has been going on for 20 plus years since the last time we left Carl. That's how much time we've spent. I know we hit the highlights. We hit the highlights, but the reality is this has been going 20 years, even after Carl the 12th falls in battle.
Yeah. Because he didn't make it. He didn't.
Still won't give up.
That's a straight up badass. You know what? If I wanted somebody to be my czar, of all the czars, and I know they do some bad shit, they all do. Everybody, all of them are guilty. I think that I would want at least somebody like that to stand up. I know it's probably for himself, but his self represents me. So if I'm gonna go for it, I'm gonna go for Peter. Yay!
Exactly.
I'm going.
God damn it! I've had enough. It is time to salt the ground at Carthage, so to speak.
Since
But
bitch.
if you're gonna have a nemesis, how great has Sweden been? 20 plus years of this horse shit. Even after the king, you got a new king that has no beef. But we're not giving it up. Sweden straight up refuses to recognize Peter's Baltic conquest, and so Peter knows what he has to do. He crushed the army once. He's gonna have to put his gigantic Russian foot in the middle of the Swedish Navy's ass too. Okay? Enough.
No lube, just yank it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
General surgeon is going to have to pull it out. This is not a proctologist problem anymore. Okay?
Okay.
Like I said, it's legacy time. We aren't joking around here. And when you're trying to build your legacy, it has to be so annoying. Like, if Peter has a status, it's just the eye roll emoji. Eye roll equals Sweden.
Oh, God. Here comes Peter, the legacy. Okay. I mean, it is.
At the end of the day, though, he's like, all right, so you want to play. So, 1714. Gangut? I'm assuming that's how you say it. Gangut? The Swedes are going to learn a little bit about Russia. Russia's here to stay. Get fucking used to it, Europe. They will, and you're going to find Russia's going to be with us forever now in history. It's who we are. It's what we do now and ever. Right up to today. So Gangut sees the Russians' first naval victory over Sweden, which for everyone involved except for Russia, it's like a huge WTF moment. Like, oh, what? Stop the presses. They're here. They're severe. They want access to the ocean. They're here. They're severe. They want access to the ocean. Like, Russia's not dicking around anymore.
That is a great slogan. Damn, Jay. Okay. Oh, wow. I just rhymed myself. I'm proud. I'm proud of both of us in this moment.
We're gifted. Basically, Peter's like wagging it, helicopter, and going, what are you going to do about it, Europe?
Let's work. Watch me.
You are Japan. Sorry, that's a reference.
No. It's a reference to the time. To the time frame. It's a joke on the time frame, not the joke on present day or any day where we were.
No, it's a joke on the 20th century or late 19th, early 20th century. The Russo-Japanese War is a long, long time into the future. But let's just say, spoiler alert, Japan trounces Russia's ass. Just so we all know. But at this time, you're not trouncing anything. So Russia is just like real AF right now. Like, it's metal. It is metal what they are bringing. So just 6 years later in 1720 at Gringham, Russia is now capturing Swedish frigates, and shit is getting real for Sweden because, like, oh God, they're coming. They're coming.
Professor Jessica or Professor Manor, what are
Dexter?
fuck you. I mean, fuck you. What are frigates? Swedish, is that like soldiers?
No,
Frigate?
frigates, they're a type of ship.
Oh God. Okay. I was way off. I thought it was like, because I get that it's like a battle, so I thought it was soldiers.
We're not Navy men, so how the fuck would you know if you didn't know? No,
Thanks,
it's a type
Jeff.
of ship. So they're whipping the Navy's ass so hardcore now that they're just taking their ships from them.
Okay. Which I feel that would be kind of hard. I mean, I don't imagine myself going out on the sea in a ship.
Well, think about that.
Ship. You're going to be mine. I just.
You have to keep them from cannoning your ship to death, kill everybody on board, and take that son of a bitch. So,
okay.
At this point, Peter ain't got to dance again. He's making money moves. He just got 4 ships free of in charge at a time when it was difficult to build them.
Right.
So, but Sweden's starting to realize, oh, fuck, the Russians are coming for us. So then Sweden gets like a little bit smartass and signs a treaty with Britain. And while Britain is going to rule the world by sea a little bit later on in history, this is not the time. So Britain and Sweden form a joint Anglo-Swedish alliance, which is cute, but Britain, you are so not ready for the Great White North yet. Not even close.
It's just that, like, put together, like that big, like that, like, hey, look at us, we know what we're doing. Or I'm just
Peter's put that kind of Navy together in the last 20 years, and they're just fucking tougher.
He's actually focused on the naval battle, or the naval protection, I guess, more than other. Okay.
What is right now? I mean, if I got to flip a coin on it right now at this time in history, what might be the greatest standing army, if I got to be a betting man in 1720, the greatest standing army on earth, and the Navy tain't a slouch. And furthermore, if you're going to fight in the northern Baltic, you better be ready for that Russian fucking cold bullshit.
Okay.
It's gotten everybody from Napoleon to like Hitler. Do you think that in 1720 Britain's ready for that? No, they aren't. Unless you're the Mongols or Alexander, you're not ready for what Russia's got.
and that's the thing, is like I still have to like physically put my mind, like put a mindset into that time era. Like I have to physically be like, all right, think about it, Bethany. We're talking about like some serious shit here. Like
1720, it's some serious shit. And even though Britain's a hell of a force to be reckoned with, even in 1720,
right,
they ain't Russia ready.
They're not Russia, and honestly, I don't think anybody's gonna be Russia.
This isn't like prime time peak of the British Empire. Maybe some years later they might have been in trouble, but not right now in 1720, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So like I said, super cute. Britain's not ready for that.
Right.
Not that kind of cold and not that mentally tough. I'm sorry. You go to come at Russia in Russia, you better be pretty fucking mentally tough. And I mean like Genghis Khan ready to eat some ass.
Like Genghis Khan times 10. We'll just give him 10 more. You know what I mean? At least.
Because we also got to think right now, this is Peter the Great. He's in that mindset of, I don't got to dance. I make money moves. We're back there. And he's learned a life's worth of lessons.
And it's already been evident he really doesn't have to do a whole lot to get the backing. He already has the people that are like, I don't give a fuck.
1/6 of the population of the world and had nothing but 20 years to prepare. He can sit his ass back in St. Petersburg and laugh as he watches these things sink off the coast from his own ports where his navy just blockades and pulls a chain like, you want some of this? Come and get it. I dare you.
Yeah,
Exactly. And so that's a lot of what is going on. And of course, we're right. This little alliance tries to have a go at the Russian fleet base at Rayevo. I think it's Rayevo. I don't know. You know, I finally get used to Slavic words, and now we're going to introduce Swedish, because that's exactly what I fucking need in my life. I need some more.
Everybody knows how I am with pronunciations. Do not look at me.
It's Rayevo. It's Rayevo. I'm pretty sure. Like, what I need is another GD Indo-European language introduced. That's what I needed in my life. Is one goddamn headache when it came to this shit. And the old Anglo-Swedish alliance ends up turning around almost immediately and limping their way back home. Like I said, Peter don't play. Not anymore. He's got shit to do, and he doesn't have time for whatever the rest of Europe wants to try to throw down. So apparently, Sweden finally learns their lesson, because September 10th, 1721, they end up putting pen or quill to paper and sign the Treaty of Nystad. And that's not it. Nystad. There we go. That's what I was saying. The Treaty of Nystad, and end the Great Northern War, which is going to run from about 1700 to 1721, by the way. I'm trying to be a little bit better about throwing dates into the narrative for all you whiners out there, so piss off.
Well, honestly, Jay, just from my whole experience, when a date gets thrown in, then I try to base it off of an actual. Yes, it does help, but sometimes when you add what I'm getting at is the date sometimes gets confusing. It really does.
I know that, but also in my head, I know what's simultaneously going on in the world. I've got to also realize that not everybody is aware of what's simultaneously. Oh, I've said the Treaty of Nystad. I'm talking about the Great Northern War. This is what's happening in Europe, or in the Ottoman Empire. That's not,
Right. And personally, if somebody like me, 90, well, I'm just putting myself in 90. I would like to think I'm in 90% of the world. That's like, oh, at least give me an idea of an era or time where I'm like, oh, wait, it give me something to go off of. And when you throw dates in, it makes me feel pressured to be like, wait, apparently I should know the 1700s.
Yeah, exactly.
Was I born? No. It just gives that level of anxiety, and so yes, but they are good.
But I just want everybody to kind of hold it in their heads that that's how long this war has actually gone on. 1700 to 1721. It's going to end. It's going to end with the Treaty of Nystad. And now, oh God, we're going to get into more Swedish. Fuck. So I'm trying to be a little better, like I said, about throwing out the dates. Now we all know what this treaty basically does is cedes officially. Now, that's not to say that Russia hasn't been occupying this territory the entire time, because they have been, because they won it in the land war. But this puts pen to paper, officially cedes this territory to the control of Russia. It belongs to Russia. So we're talking about the area around St. Petersburg, which is Ingria to the Swedes. It gives that to Russia. So even though Peter's been building St. Petersburg, there's no piece of paper that says this is part of Russia, not part of Sweden anymore.
They just said it was theirs. They were just like, hey, it's ours now. Okay.
Well, it was theirs. Peter took it.
Okay.
And that's kind of where we're at. But it's not been officially ceded on paper, not been officially annexed to the Russian Empire, or won by conquest, if you will.
Okay.
Now it's on paper.
Hey. Okay.
They also cede Swedish Livonia, which is modern day southern Estonia and Latvia, and Ishland. Oh, I got that one. Okay, now see, I'm getting in the
Okay.
I'm getting in the Swedish vibe.
Not what I would have said, but hey, good for you. That's why you're the host.
Oh, yay! So they see the Ishland, which ends up being northern Estonia today. So we've got all of Estonia, Latvia now, and part of Karelia, which has always kind of been a part of Russia. Now, Peter is just like whipping ass left and right. Okay. Hashtag big gains.
Gains. Big gains. Hashtag big gains.
Also, really quickly, an aside, if you ever wonder why Russia has the stones to say that any part of Eastern Europe belongs to them,
yeah,
whether they were into later Russian politics or no, you will find historically it was
really?
Yeah.
It really was.
They just were ceded what became Estonia and Latvia by the Swedes. Now, they didn't share necessarily common people groups or language or religion.
So it's like, I'm sorry, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, we're this, but we don't share anything else.
It doesn't matter. It is the property of fucking Russia. It's clearly they didn't share it with Sweden either. They didn't share people group with Sweden either.
Okay, sure.
But that's the nature of imperialism and the nature of empire. They're there to steal somebody else's, raw goods. But I do want to remind you, if we wonder why fucking Russia gets so uppity later in history, like, excuse you, Estonia? What did you just say to me, Latvia? It's because they were part of the Russian Empire. It's not that crazy, and I am not defending the Soviet Union's actions, okay?
No,
we are not.
It's
but
just
I'm saying we hear it from the other side. Maybe kind of see it from theirs. Like, excuse you? It's 1720. You've been ours since 1720. Like, it's not a fucking newsflash, okay? We didn't just wander in and take over.
Hey.
Yeah, it was.
Like that. No.
Oh my God, we just lost all of Eastern Europe. They're so pissed off at us. Russia's loving us. By the time we finish this, we may only have listeners in goddamn Russia and certain parts of Germany. And we're the most liberal-minded two people on the planet. We are the most liberal-minded two people on the planet. I'm just saying there is an historical case for it. I should keep talking. Like, this is where my point is, when we talk about correlating to current events, this is where the fuss begins, guys. This is where that shit crosses the line. It's sort of like when we checked in on the annexation, according to the Russians, / non-annexation, according to the Ukraine, way back when the Cossacks, in the time of troubles and in the early Romanovs, were like stirring up shit with Poland about Orthodoxy and Catholicism. And again, that's where we're at today. The Ukraine wonders where.
You tell it, Josie or Lola. You are right. It feels like we are already there. Whatever you're saying.
It does.
Whatever years later.
We're going to do another pause out now that they've stopped barking. I'm going to repeat all of that. You're just going to have to listen to me again. So it's kind of like when we go back to when the Ukraine and the Cossacks were stirring up that kind of shit. Please go listen to our other episodes. And again, when it's Poland versus Russia, Orthodox versus Catholicism. For some reason, everybody got really mad at Jewish people, which is beyond me why you'd take it out on them. But that's where we were. But the point is, even there, you wonder why Russia goes, Ukraine, my crane. Well, because it started back in the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, and it continues in the Volga today. That is the property of Russia, technically. Like I said, I am not defending their imperialist actions. I'm just saying there's a very long stand. Why they get so damn pissy.
I'm just gonna make a point. I had never heard Ukraine, I crane. I really had never heard that till you just
crane.
My crane, Ukraine, my crane. I crane, my crane. All rhymes. It's the same. Hey,
that's always what I imagine Vladimir Putin says. Ukraine, my crane. It's not funny. We're sorry, Eastern Europe. My God, we are sorry
laughing.
for all this.
But we only laugh. Remember, again, we put a disclaimer. We laugh because it's uncomfortable and we don't know how else to express it without crying.
We don't know how else to express it. And we would also emphasize, do you see? This is why history is important. When you read these headlines and you're like, where does Russia get off? I don't know. 1563 and 1720, just off the top of my head. That's exactly where they get off. Now, is it right? No. Nobody's saying this. The Soviets didn't say, hey, that's ours. This annexation of parts of what is now Eastern Europe with different people groups or religions or whatever has been going on for ages. Vladimir Putin wasn't the first person to ever wake up in Russia and start shit in the Ukraine. He is in a long line of rulers.
He actually read a history book.
Like I said, he's got a binder of like Russian money moves, and he just opens it and says, "What shit am I gonna start today? This looks fun. Let's do this."
Tabs. He's got little tabs to be like, how to start a ... how to avoid a ... how to interfere with a ... Sorry.
I do not respect the man, but I will say he knows his people and he knows his people's history very, very well. And that is why he's successful. Within the bounds of his own country, that is why he's very, very successful. I'm just going to say, this is why history matters, and it very much matters. As we're finding out day to day on our television via the news. It matters. It's proactive. It is something that is not necessarily buried in the past. It's something that lives with us. This is why we correlate things to current events and why it's important that we talk about crazy things like, oh, the Swedish let Russia annex Estonia and Latvia. Why is that going to matter? Well, it's going to matter in a lot of the 20th century, and it matters right now today. The more you know. A good rule of thumb, though, I will say, if you're a country, ask first. Get consent. Get consent to annex some of that sweet, juicy territory, okay? Otherwise, you might find that you were just an imperialist dick, and the locals didn't say you could have my resources. And I'm looking at all of the big five, not just Britain, not just us, not just Russia, all of you big powers out there. This is food for thought. This is why it maybe gets a little crazy later on down the line. But then again, a czar's not in the habit of asking, is he?
I know, but it's funny that you said get consent. And I'm not saying that it's funny. That's not funny. I'm sorry. What I mean is like, because it's uncomfortable and I don't know how else to express it. But it's a huge thing. And it just kind of tickled me a bit because I cannot picture the Tsar having that Oh wait, is this okay? Are you you
Swedish
sure?
Slavonia, would you like to be part of Russia? Oh,
No,
you
I
want to be
don't see
independent.
that. That's
Right?
not gonna
No, it's
happen.
not
That's
going to
not
happen.
safe.
And it's
No.
absolutely ridiculous to assume
Yes.
that in all of human history. And quite frankly, can you imagine Joseph Stalin asking?
Oh, sorry.
Right?
I shouldn't laugh, but again, laugh is just
laugh. My God, we've got to
emotion.
put down our shovels. We have dug an 8.5-foot hole. Like, Eastern Europe is so pissed off at us right now. So Russia has permanently owns a Baltic Sea outlet. Like, on paper, Russia's arrived. Officially, they're a European power, a world power. As you can imagine, every man and woman in Russia is just like lining up to get on their knees and bellies for Peter, hail the conquering hero. He has just, though, effectively put Russia on the map. And it's not just Rus, and it's not the Muscovite duchy. Peter just solidified the empire Russia has been working to build for centuries. So
Everything.
Everything. It's a small wonder the old Russian Senate is just like getting rug burns while showering Peter in praise, and he gets some new titles. Like, he's walking around with a paragraph of BS after his name, like he is Daenerys Targaryen at this point. Okay,
I seriously thought you were gonna say he was walking around with his dick hanging out. It might as well been, but I really thought that's where you were going with that. It's just
might as well be.
Hey,
I mean, but like, no, seriously,
I'm Peter.
He's about to like read like any of George R. Martin's books after you mentioned Daenerys Targaryen. Like, he might as well be the mother of dragons. That's about the only thing that's missing. Okay,
Breaker of chains, freer of slaves. He should, even though he didn't, but he should be. Yeah,
mother
no, I'm
of
with
slaves, mother of dragons. That's where he's
Yeah.
at. So he is named Father of the Nation, officially Peter the Great, and Emperor of all Russia.
This is
the moment. Yeah.
where he gets the name, where it makes the history
Peter the Great. From now
generations to come, and blurry blur.
He is no longer Peter the First, Alexeyevich of the House Romanov. He's just Peter the Great.
I would have never known he was part of a Romanov. I don't even know what that was. Honestly, it wasn't. All I knew was Peter the Great. That phrase, that term, and this is where 8 million hours later, this is where it comes from.
Because confusingly enough, they do have last names taken from the father, tattooed if it's feminine or if it's masculine. Whereas, like, Louis of France is Louis Bourbon, like, pick a fucking number. Whereas he is Peter Alexeyevich of the House of Romanov.
He's the first, right? He's the
first Peter. There's going to be lots of Peters. Why wouldn't there be? This is Russia.
This is the
300 years to name their kids the same shit. Okay, so but also, more importantly, the Russian Tsardom is dead. The Russian Empire is
gone.
Born. He's not Tsar Peter. He's Emperor. So this is it. Peter's Emperor now. Like, he is Caesar no more. Tsardom's dead. Like, this is fucking Empire time, okay? And you'll see the parallels, because if you'll remember, they thought that if you marry the niece of some fallen emperor, you somehow inherit Eastern Rome. But I would find, and you'll find, that the Ottomans very much disagree with that. But it is what it is. So, like we said, Peter didn't have time to chill. Not a well man, killed his heir apparent not too long ago. And then, you know, very few of Peter's children with Catherine actually survived infancy. So
Surprise.
Surprise. In the 1600s, no, in the late 1600s, there wasn't like, you know, a huge survival rate.
That's why they had so many.
So you got to, and hope that
You
one
have to,
might make it. So here's kind of what we have kicking around right now for the House of Romanov. Now, Peter has 2 adult daughters, Anna and Elizabeth, and a grandson. King Kid Fears here. A grandson, Little Peter. An unfortunate nickname.
Didn't see that one going. Little
Peter, who is the son of the now dead Tsarevich Alexei. So the son he killed, this is his son, Little Peter. But Peter, Big Peter, didn't want Little Peter to succeed him yet. He wanted the boy to grow up.
Nobody wants a Big Peter to be beat out by a Little Peter. Nobody wants that.
No matter how hard Little Peter may try, you know, it's just not Big Peter. So he wanted the boy to grow up, you know, normal, and he was kind of fearing that his enemies would just use, basically the kid's going to become a human puppet for his enemies and naysayers and undo all of Peter's reforms.
Okay.
Which again is what Peter's very much trying to avoid with all of this.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, where we are. So Russia was never going back as far as Peter was concerned. Whatever he had to do, he was going to make it happen. So he changes the ancient customs of succession. Instead of basically, I die, now it goes to the next male in line, right?
Right.
He thinks and makes it so that a ruler should, according to the decree, be, quote, free to choose to whom they give their inheritance.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit. Because now it's anybody's ball game, right? Like, whoever he picks, that's who it's going to be. And more importantly, women can now play as well.
That's kind of cool. Way to go, Peter. Did he intend for women, or he just... I mean, is he a sexist? I'm just curious.
Well, no, he's definitely a lover of women. We're gonna get to that as well. I don't think it was so much that. I think it's whoever he thought was going to carry on his initiatives and not be able to be puppeted by people that didn't love Peter's reforms. Exactly. I mean, it's just like, but it is a big step because, like, just yesterday they were letting women finally look in mirrors for the first time, you know, and now all of a sudden
they can be bizarre.
Right? Like, what? What is this voodoo? What's the world coming to?
I mean, yeah, soon we might be able to vote. Wait, hold on, not yet. We gotta wait.
Russia will be hell in a handbasket. Oh dear. So spring 1724 at the Cathedral of Assumption in the Kremlin, what does Peter do? He crowns his wife, Catherine, Empress of all of Russia.
Shit!
Ooh, yeah. So now Peter's enemies and some of the old school guys are flipping the fuck out. First off,
my God.
woman. But does this mean that he intends to leave the throne to her? So Peter refused to say one way or the other. But soon after the coronation, Peter learns that Catherine has been unfaithful to him.
Ooh, snap.
Ooh. And with the brother of Anna Mons, you know, that Dutch chick that cheated on Peter the first time around that lived for 7 years, her brother is who Catherine's been banging, right?
Oh, God. Could she have banged anybody else? Like anybody else?
Anybody. You could have just, anybody in the wide world of sports probably would have been less insulting to Peter, but here we are.
Right.
It's what we're doing.
Right.
It's where we're at. So he didn't take it well, as you can imagine. Catherine was Peter's what? Catherine, to be fair, was Peter's closest companion and perhaps the love of his life, even if he was stepping out every chance that he got.
Well,
but,
yeah.
Hey,
He's
it's good to be the king.
Right.
You know? What do we expect? She could calm his rage outbursts, and many people would end up witnessing this in the course of Peter's life. Cue some writing on the subject by the then German ambassador. So, quote, he used to have fits caused by a dark thought entering his head that someone was trying to kill him. And remember, Peter's fits, this was a lifelong thing. He's just not a shaky kid anymore. Now he's an adult having these in there.
Right.
Usually rage fits. These episodes were a nightmare for those closest to him. They knew a fit was coming when his mouth started to shake, and they would immediately send for the Empress. She would start talking to him, and the sound of her voice calmed him down. She used to make him sit down and would then take his head in her hands, brushing it gently. It was like magic. He would fall asleep in a matter of minutes. So as not to disturb him, she would hold his head against her chest and sit without moving for 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
After that, he would wake up fresh and invigorated.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, Catherine was basically Peter's
mommy.
Comfort blanket. Yeah, comfort blanket, mommy.
Security blanket, whatever you want to call it. That's very interesting that she would sacrifice and do that for him, but then she'd turn around and sleep with his ex's brother. Yikes.
We'll find out. Okay, I'll keep going then.
Okay.
Peter, though, not really a faithful type hubby either, to be
Right.
fair. I mean, he would literally bet anything that moved on campaign, as long as it had a specific body part he was looking for. And the ladies, of course, were not safe either. Like, in his daddy's day, you got to realize women weren't even allowed to be seen. Now they're like openly worshipped in the eyes of the court. Peter is a notorious poon hound. Like, maybe he needed to be loved by everybody. I don't know. I don't know what his deal was. Like, if there had been Instagram, Peter would have just been so fucking thirsty, I think.
On everyone.
On every social media platform. So thirsty. So the changes to custom and dress implemented by Peter were certainly blamed for this collapse in morality that everybody, his enemies thought were going on or was going on. And Peter was the worst example. Literally just whatever there was to hump. He was going to hump it. He had many a noble mistress, and he vetted them in the full knowledge of their fathers or husbands. Again, it's good to be the king.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe Catherine just had all she could freaking take of that bullshit. But she tolerated it all, never said a word, but I mean, I know that was expected in those days.
Right.
It's expected in these days. Really. But Peter, despite doing that, instead of having the understanding of going, oh, well, I do it too, maybe this is, hey, what's good for the goose, good for the gander kind of thing. No, czars aren't all about understanding. It's not really
They don't like to share.
No, they don't.
Unless it's other husbands' women.
But apparently that's okay. Yeah, that we're fine with. But not his wife. He flies off the handle, though, when he discovers this.
Right.
He has her lover arrested and charged with taking bribes to avoid public scandal. And
wow.
Screw around, Loverboy was found guilty in 5 days and executed by the 8th.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, it was fast moving. And plus, we're still trying to keep the public from finding anything out about this. It's said, okay, now I don't know if this is true, but it does seem like a kind of Peter thing to do to me.
Okay.
Now, it is said that Peter had his head removed and pickled in a jar and supposedly delivered this in person to Catherine's chambers.
Holy crap!
Who knows if it's actually
Oh my god!
Who knows if it's actually
Oh my
I'm just
god.
saying, I can kind of see Peter
Yeah.
doing this.
This is a total Peter. This is a total Russian Tsar time of troubles move. Like, this is just...
Used to, it was the genitals, but maybe he didn't think she could recognize those by sight, so he just went with the head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you cut somebody's head off, put it in a jar, and then hand deliver it to them, to the person that obviously cared about them or whatever, that does make a pretty strong point.
Makes a statement. Maybe don't try it again, Because
it could be her head.
Like Russia.
Because it could have been, he could have cut off her head.
Oh, yeah, because that would have been treason.
Yeah.
So he must love her a lot to only give her the lover's head. That was kind of my thing. Like, oh, it's kind of romantic in a weird fucking romantic Russian way.
It's Russia's romance. That's what it is. That's just the way it works there, apparently, in Russia. Oh my god, you cheated on me. Instead of killing you, I'm going to kill them, and then I'm going to bring you their head. Just to show you.
Some people bring flowers, but that's a weak game. I prefer my ex-lover's head in a box. Thank you. It's very Seven of him. Very. What's in the box? Whatever happened, the two did not speak, dine, or sleep together for almost a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So this takes us into the autumn of 1724, and finally time and ill health are going to make Peter take a little bit of a turn for the worse.
I was wondering when this was going to happen.
Yeah, so he's not doing too good in the autumn, and by January 16th, Peter, too ill to leave his bed, and he calls for Catherine. Now, she kneels beside him, and they talk for like a solid 3 hours, bro. And in the end up forgiving each other.
Right. Well, when you're on your deathbed, when you're on your deathbed, it's like, all right, I don't want to have, that's like I leave with unfinished business, no regrets, that kind of stuff. So I get that. And he has that opportunity. So
as a human being, would you want to ghost Peter wandering around the Kremlin, hopping out?
No. Oh, hell no. I don't want that juju on me.
Right? So you're going to make up with him. You're just going to do it. So they forgive each other. Next day, Peter really, really deteriorates, and Catherine ends up just holding up with him. He's in terrible screaming pain. By January 22nd, he goes ahead and makes his final confession. 5 days later, he attempts to write a will, but doesn't get more than leave everything scratched out before fainting. So half of the people in the next fucking room, literally, as he's dying, because they're
waiting.
They're waiting. So half of the people are for 10-year-old little Peter, which is the big king kid problem. And the other half that killed little Peter's father, Alexei, want Catherine to succeed to the throne on the off chance that the boy's still holding the grudge.
Right.
So at 4 a.m., the Senate declares everything goes to Catherine. And at 5 past, Peter the Great of Russia dies in the arms of the now Catherine I, Empress of Russia. Oh, I know, right?
I shouldn't do an awe moment just because of everything Peter has done. But That's really sweet because in the end, yes, you know what? Maybe he was humping everything left and right that had a poo-tang, but at least in the end, the one person he wanted the most.
Yeah, and he's not like
I'm trying not to get all teary-eyed.
he's not handing over crown jewels or anything to his lovers. He's just like, and he's not taking lovers. It's just a one-time thing. He has what he wants, and then baggage. Like, yeah.
Well, so that's kind of nice. At least he just humped and left. He didn't keep something on the side long term. Okay.
Yeah, he didn't have side poon really. It was more of a one and done kind of a tissue situation.
Right.
That's kind of what he was pulling.
Right.
So now Catherine I is the Empress of Russia, which quite an accomplishment for a one-time housemaid who is illiterate.
Oh, great.
She couldn't even read. The only thing she ever learned to do was scratch out her name, her signature on documents, literally. Now, history is going to remember her kindly as well. She was the Mary Tsaritsa, like she just was what she was. And as much as I would love to tell that story, and the story that comes after, ours ends today with the death of Peter the Great. So Peter's legacy. Many people believe without this total, badass iron-willed giant of history of Russia, or the history of Russia would have maybe remained on the outskirts, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like maybe, Russia doesn't ever come to the forefront without all of the things that Peter does. Now, I think that's a little ridiculous, but I think it would have been a much longer time if we'd have never had Peter. Russia.
I think eventually it would have happened, but maybe not in the way that we would. It could have been worse. It could have been better. Who knows? But I think you're right. Like, to an extent, it was we're talking about Russia here. Eventually, it would have all happened. Like,
right.
So.
But I think things would have looked different. I don't think Russia would have been as big as it ends up being. I don't think that it would. Now it continues to fall behind, and we have a key emperor and a key empress later on down the line that really make sure. But I do not think that Russia looks like Russia in the 20th century without Peter the Great. That's just my opinion. I know some people disagree with that opinion, and I'm here to let them know that they are wrong. So,
and if you don't believe us, then please listen to everything we have talked about.
Everything we've talked about. Like I said, it's backwater. It is no grand European player as it would become. And it became in Peter's lifetime, which is pretty damn impressive. Peter's reforms created this unstoppable momentum, kind of thrusting Russia fully onto the world stage. And like I said, that can't be argued. If you want to try, you're wrong.
Right.
And Russia never does fade back into obscurity. This is it from this point on. Russia is a world player. Now, he built a true blue empire. Palaces and gardens rose even after his death in St. Petersburg and were lit by Russia's first oil lamps. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that at the end of Alexei's reign in just Peter's lifetime? Now we've got lit boulevards where people can be stabbed in the light versus the dark. So, that's exciting. That's a step up.
I'd rather like to see versus I want to see who I'm stabbing or who I'm getting stabbed by.
I see who I'm stabbing, who's stabbing me. I agree. I want to know if it's just, what kind of, is it a bayonet? Is it just a normal knife? That's always really interesting.
Right.
Between stabber and stabby.
Right.
Cannon-armed navies floating in the seas. Russia has a full-fledged navy in multiple seas now. Not when Peter first took the throne. Russia had printed newspapers. Academies of science stood. Merchant goods traveled the world. Schools of artillery, medicine, and navigation were open. And foundries produced iron and copper for the new armaments industry that was necessary to supply one of the now most powerful standing armies in Europe. Peter basically, and we've said it in this final episode a lot. I mean, he dragged Russia, kicking and screaming, out of the Middle Ages and into the modern world. Period. So I don't know what the world looks like without Peter.
So I have a question. So I mean, yes. Sorry, I'm trying to think how I want to ask this. I know we're not going to go further than Peter, but obviously his reforms, and even though people didn't like them at the time, Catherine obviously took the reforms and still followed them. Is that, like, that's what at least it sounds like.
She didn't do much governing. There was a privy council established for her that did the governing, and they were Peter's men. So they kept up all the
reforms in the okay. And that makes sense.
Enough not to pick somebody that wasn't on her husband's side.
Sure.
They governed, made laws, reforms, and she signed them. That's why she had to learn to sign her name.
Yeah, because she could have been a bitch and just been like, fuck you, Peter. You know what I mean? She could have, fired everybody and just done her own thing. But
I will say this, she was too busy having a good time. She was quite the party, Serena.
I think I'd be down for that. If you just been handed Russia and you don't really have to do the work, and nothing's going to go wrong because the people that are working for you were your husband's, pals and everything. It's like, oh my God, she literally got handed a perfect platter. Like, here's trusted, employee, your advisors. Now I get to go literally enjoy the beauties of being a ruler.
Of being basically the Serena of being the Empress, of Russia. Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to go to bed at 10 a.m. and wake up at 4 p.m. too, okay? Like, that's going to be my thing.
Because she can, period. That's just, it's good to be Tsarina.
It is good to be Serena. It is good to be the queen.
Yeah.
So, like we said, I don't even think there's a modern Europe, really, or at least the way that we know it and see it without Peter the Great. And now Russia is going to have to stand without him. And as always, because it is Russia, there's trouble on the horizon.
God.
Already. Even following Catherine's death, it really kicks off some good old-fashioned Russian style bullshit.
Yay! But we're not going there.
That's the problem about Russia. A dynastic crisis is like always around the corner. Somebody's not going to have enough kids. Somebody's going to have too many kids. It's always right there with the Romanovs. And it would be almost 40 years before Russia would once again find itself with a ruler to rival Peter. And she would be a woman at that. Yeah.
Ooh,
that is a story for another far
away day.
Oh, so far in the future, there are not even words for it. All right. And that ends our saga of Peter the Great of Russia. And better yet, our explanation of the early Romanovs up to Peter the Great.
Woohoo!
We're finished.
We done, girl. We done. We done. Girl, we done. Hey, we done.
We're out. I don't know why my background's blurry and it's kind of throwing me off. Sorry, people that are just listening to this and can't see this. Like, I've got a blurry background and I can't even enjoy being out of Russia right now for looking at it. No, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Yeah, I was going to say, come on now, Jess. Who cares? We are out of Russia.
We're done. This is the last you will hear for a significant period of time. Just because we have been in Russia, guys, since January. Yeah, we did some little episodes in between there. But I had to flee the East Coast for a temporary amount of time. But most of what we have covered since January has been Russia. And we're done, Bethany. I don't even know what to do with myself.
I love that my suggested news offers me articles on Russian history now. It's literally like, hey. Let's talk about Nicholas II's arm tattoo.
Yeah.
Wait,
what?
What? This was not in the discussion about Russian history at all. Why am I now hearing about this arm tattoo?
No more. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see it in my news feed. I don't care. No offense, Russia. At this point, you can like break off and like flop into the ocean, and I'd be like, nope, barred from my news feed for a while. Money. So hopefully next week, 1, we're gonna have a little fun. 2, we're gonna sound more pumped up than we've been for this entire episode. We're not gonna have to get as drunk, sober to get through it as we've had to get through this. It's just gonna be a consistent buzz and having fun with things like the Le Mans disaster episode, or just, little fun things, and not that it's always, fun. It's never fun. That's the point. Well, no, it's a little fun. It's a little fun.
It's
kind of fun. Smile, but yeah, right. Who am I kidding? It's a little fun to talk about this stuff, just not Russia.
Right.
Like I said, it's going to be a long time. I wanted to, initially when I did this, I was going to keep going and do the Empresses, but I would rather just go ahead and
not do that.
I would rather jump into, I'll make it a Russian joke even. I would rather jump naked into Lake Baikal in December than do the Empresses. Yeah.
You would freeze to death before you could actually jump in naked, right?
Almost instantly. I imagine almost instantly. So we don't have anything to add. This has been a long episode. We're exhausted. I'm sure you're exhausted listening to it. We're done. We're effing done. Go check us out on Patreon if you want to actually watch us record this shit. It's patreon.com/bodycount. We post it free there. This week, I'm going to try to get an extra body count out since we're doing little stuff. I figure when I'm writing 7 days a week around the clock on Russian history, I ought to have some time now. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. At least we know like the most shit I can possibly churn out in a week. Turns out it's this.
Yeah.
And you know what? I did you guys a favor. It's only 8 pages now. This started out as 30 pages and made its way down.
God. I about passed out when I saw it was 8 pages. I was like, Jessica, it's just you and me. Oh my God, no.
Just you and me. There's nobody to break up our insanity this week. And Russia has driven us like more insane than we already were. I swear to God, it has put me over the edge. You can hear us wherever you listen to podcasts. I think most people are probably going to do Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can definitely listen to us in both places. Search Body Count or listen to us on our website at bodycounthistorypod.com. Do us a favor and just tell one person you know about us if you love the show. Just one person.
That's fun.
We're doing that. I'm trying to do that for every podcast that I love, like once a day. I'll cycle through them, and there are a lot. Oh, God, there are a lot. I listen to so many history podcasts. I'm like, oh, did we do that? No, it was most definitely somebody else, because the things I'm thinking in my head are way too put together when I'm thinking about a topic. I'm like, oh, yes, that occurred in no, we didn't write that. We could have been like, oh, my God, it's like Russian blackout curtains. Corpses are Russian blackout curtains.
Like, oh, my God.
Oh, my God, Grab our merchandise over at bigheadsmedia.com. Click the history tab, and we are right there. First thing that you're going to see. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Body Count Pod. We post a lot on this day in history, body count, daily totals, and drop in some fun, just random body counts a lot of times on both of those platforms daily. Bethany's very, very good at it. Obviously, I'm not doing that, guys. Like, creativity, not my jam. That's all Bethany. So, she's killing it. They look so good. Sometimes I'm like, this is our page? Wow.
Well, thanks. It was definitely a process. Like, I felt really ridiculous, and I'm very tech savvy when it does come to computers. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think the main thing is just searching for dates in history about death and disaster. And then there's certain days where it's like, God, how many people freaking died? Jesus. It was just, it can be a little overwhelming, but it's fun.
And there are a lot of times I'm like, oh my God, that's so interesting. I'm going to post that. And I'm like, oh, wait, nobody died. That's not really our jam. Somebody has to die, Jessica. It's literally in the intro that we read weekly. That's our one jam.
Whether it's one or billions, somebody has to die.
I know people are always like, oh, check out this cool thing. Maybe y'all can use this. And it's like about an activist or something. And I always am like, man, I would love to. But did they die at the end of that speech? No.
The only time we have done Oververse where we did have a survivor, but that was just one, right? Didn't we do a survivor one? I could have sworn we've done one where we did do
those are reverse body counts. But the point, the guy that survived the 2 atomic bombs. But the point was we were also looking at all the bodies dropped by 2 atomic bombs. So,
that is true. That is true. That's right.
It seems, because to me it seemed really silly to tell the story of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I thought, I'll tell about like one of 160 people who survived both of those things. I think I'm gonna, because I could talk about atomic bombs till I'm blue in the face. But everybody already kind of, it's one of those things like the World War II. You're pretty well versed in it. Most people are already armchair historians about it anyway. So I thought, we'll do it different.
I don't consider myself an armchair. I'm more like a little tiny stool that swivels up and swivels down. Like that's my history chair. Like a little, like a doctor's chair. Like, this is how much I know about history. This is how much I don't know.
You can follow us there, also for news, tidbits, but mostly it's going to be just like fun history body counts, and they are fun. So, Bethany, tell people where it is that they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Bethany Skelton 5. That's the number 5. You can find me on Instagram at BethanyRN24. I do have Facebook, but I don't really want y'all to be my friend. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We don't really live on Facebook.
Yeah, that's true. So, but yeah. And Jessica, you?
We just don't live on Facebook. Sorry, guys. We're Twitter and Insta people. So at Jessica B. Banner on Twitter and Instagram. So I think that does it for us. So
yes.
We will be back next week with we don't know what yet.
Whatever it is.
Not that far. Whatever.
I'm doing it. I'm gonna do one.
Okay.
I'll do it. I'll do it next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, I'm gonna write one for us to maybe hit at the beginning of the week to put on Patreon.
Bam.
It's $1. You can go and listen to additional ones now for $1.
$1.
We're pretty done. I promise. It'll be more put together next week. We're just
maybe. I don't know. Just keep listening, please.
Just keep listening. Some weeks we bring it. Some weeks it is a hot mess. I want to read it like Buster and Lucille. A hot mess.
At least we're hot.
Yeah, well, that's possible. So I'm not really looking that either today. So back at you next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.